So welcome to ProfileTree TV, and today I've got two very special guests in here, and we are going to talk about organisational culture. So gents, I'll hand it over and let you introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
So my name's Sean, this is JP, colleague, we'll say friend, semi-friend, whatever you want to put that. So our organisation is Core Impact, and at Core Impact we're focused on developing communities and businesses through culture. So we have purposely split that actually into sort of two particular sections, because we were always very much focused on business, still very much are, but we always found ourselves sort of swaying in towards just trying to help people within the community. So we want to actually make a direct impact on that as well. So we've worked together for a long time. I worked for Movie House Cinemas for I think about 18 years maybe. JP, I think you were about 13 years maybe, yeah. So I was manager for 14 years of that. 10 years ago, I had an opportunity to go across to Odyssey Bowl, so it was an organisation in administration at that time. And on behalf of Movie House Cinemas, I was seconded. It was meant to be for a year, and here we are, 10 years later, still a part of it. But that's been brilliant, and that's where we've developed Core Impact essentially through all the work that we've done in Odyssey Bowl. That's where we learned to trade and really experienced so much that we were able to put into practice. Through those experiences, we'll be able to put them together along with other parts of just experience in our lives. And there's one particular topic that we turned to as well when we were presenting Core Impact at the start, and it was a 5-day running event which we've done. It all became part of what Core Impact is, because we've developed a model called Impact Success. Now, Impact Success it's a growth model essentially, so we put it in a shape of a tree, and it has 5 key nutrients that we look at, and we put these nutrients into everything that we do, and we've talked to other people, mostly casual conversations in different businesses that we're working with since we've been full-time with Core Impact, and it's been effective in everything that we've done. And we look at the strategy of organisations, focusing on the vision and values, the leaders within the organisations, communication, mindset, and motivation. And I'll let JP do a wee bit of talking now, because he can probably take over from this point on anyway, of where kind of Core Impact developed, because he actually sort of kick-started us into thinking about what Core Impact is.
Yeah, so the abuse has started early, as you'll probably notice. I can paint a nice picture of myself here. No, look, he's probably right. I probably will take over. I'll try not to. Look, the core Impact for us is all about developing people. So our website's actually developingyourpeople.com rather than coreimpact.com, because we wanted it to be out there on the web as that. We wanted it for anyone to look at us as nothing but developing people. And so it all started with our team in Odyssey, and I think that's why Core Impact grew, because we realized that a lot of the people we were working with did come from a good educational background, but many of them didn't. They came from deprived areas, and they came from areas where there weren't many opportunities to grow financially, personally, and they kind of fell into that unfortunate stigma that people get when they're going for employment. And we didn't have that attitude from a management and leadership perspective. It was very important to us to understand that people are people, and you can develop each person to reach their potential, both personally and professionally. And what we found was it all culminated for us whenever, keeping in mind, we worked in the hospitality and leisure sectors with a cinema background. And so most of the people that worked in our place were in that age group of 18 to 24, which anyone who knows much about that age group will know that that's usually where the highest turnover rate is employee-wise. But we, as I say, it culminated for us when we had 0 employee turnover for a 2-year period in that age group. And we knew we had something special. Now, don't get me wrong, as much as that's great, we know that there is stagnation that can come about when you're in a position for too long. And we found that we created pipelines of formal and informal leaders. But for me, at that point, it started off as an idea where we're saying, I was thinking, right, well, what we do in our management team is develop people. So we've created a system, whether we knew it at that stage or not, we've created a system which we ultimately have now identified as Impact Success. And I was throwing ideas to Sean, like, we should build workshops, we should start workshops. We go to CBT workshops and they're good, but I think we could add real value to this. And at that stage, Sean, I think you had one, you only had your youngest or your oldest.
Neve was only born at that time, but she was born premature and like 3 months in hospital. So there was a lot kind of happening at that point, and it just didn't feel like a right time to start a business. I loved the whole idea around it, because that's what we've done day and daily, and we're so passionate about it, but it just wasn't the right time at that point. So that's a wee bit of delay probably coming in there.
Yeah, so I was on a real journey of personal development myself, because I started off as general team member when I started working with Sean, and moved up to team leader, supervisor, assistant manager, and so we were leading the team, and that was I moved up those ranks pretty quickly, and because, I think it's because we had a shared philosophy on how you should treat people, how you should lead people, more importantly, and how to run a business from a cultural perspective. So I was throwing this idea at him, and every time I was on shift, I was bringing it up, and he was going, "Look, I love the idea, but not now. But I'm passionate about it." And even though he was saying not now, at the same time, we spent a lot of time after the time we should have been leaving work, thinking of ideas of how we could build this business and what it would look like. And again, initially it started out, we'll do workshops for managers and teach them what we're doing. Little did we know that it was actually going to grow into this, which is we do workshops, yes, but we do one-to-one coaching, which we're learning more about every day. We do a lot of mentoring, and we run bespoke projects. So Impact Success is a consultancy package. There's so many elements to it, but we work with businesses to focus on where they're going as a business, what's their vision, but letting their people understand what that vision is, because one of the biggest problems is always motivating people. But how can people be motivated if they don't know what they're working towards? And it's thinking of the bigger picture. And it's really rewarding, because when you get to work with people and you see their own personal targets being met, but also the professional targets being met, and the business starts seeing the benefits, which are employee retention, making sure you're holding on to your best people, giving people the opportunity to grow from a leadership perspective, and utilizing those people who sometimes can be troublesome, to say the least. They have influence in a negative way sometimes, but what you usually find is those people, if you really sit down and talk to them, they're maybe not being given an opportunity to showcase all the skills that they have, and maybe they're not thanked for the good work that they do. And that's the type of thing that we do. So we're really passionate about it. I hope that comes across, and we love working with people, and we love developing people.
Incredible. And people are so important now.
100%. Absolutely. At the moment, we're really looking into the effects that COVID-19 will unfortunately have in the aftermath of everything. And we're working really hard to see how we can support organizations and specifically leaders, how we can look after the leaders of the organization, because I know that the politicians are doing as much as they can. There's no right or wrong answers here, but a lot of times they're able to go into rooms and have a think about what they're doing before they go out and say it to people. Whereas these leaders in businesses that are the life and blood of the country, they don't have the time or luxury to have a think about what the answer is. They have their people in front of them there and then asking, what do I do? Or how do I deal with this anxiety or stress? And they themselves may have that anxiety or stress, but are put in a position where they need to try and facilitate their people moving forward. So we're taking a lot of time to focus on the people, but obviously the leaders as well, and see how we can support them and build their resilience, because that's essentially what's going to be needed off the back of this.
Incredible. And a business leader might not even realize that they've got a problem with resilience or with the company culture or how they're dealing with people until it's too late.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem with this as well, because there's going to be so much focus on trying to get the safety measures in place within organizations that our concern is that the people are going to be left last, that they're going to be neglected, and everything is going to be bubbling onto the surface, and the problems are all going to show afterwards, because it's at this time that people are kind of looking to the leaders of the organization to provide a support for them. But as we were saying, I mean, I had a conversation earlier on today with one of our supervisors from Odyssey Pool, a bit more on Odyssey Pool, but I was just saying to her today, that we need to see if you're okay first, because we're expecting you to provide support for others. But how can you possibly provide support? You need support yourself, so the leaders do need to be looked after within organizations in order for them to be able to pass that through. And it's just important that the people are at the forefront of everything that goes on. I always think if you have your team settled and sorted and happy, that everything else will flow 10 times a lot easier than it will if you just think about that.
You're 100% right. And as Sean mentioned there, like, so we maybe didn't describe it very well at the start, but we still oversee the function of Odyssey Bowl. We're no longer employed by Movie House as we were. Back in September 2019, we were making it very clear that we were at the point where we were ready to step away. We had a good enough relationship with the owner of Movie House where he said, look, don't want to have to replace you, would you consider staying on as a management company? So on top of everything else we do, we have that experience with a lot of management leadership experience. So it's very unique because it's still our team. So while they're now a client of ours, Odyssey Bowl is our client, it's still our team. And so we take everything so personally. So when we do that with every crowd that we work with, but at the same time, it's so close to home whenever it's the people you've literally developed. And so when you have calls like that you're having chats, as Sean mentioned there, with people, it's so important for us because you need to practice what you preach. How can we go to other organizations and teach them how to build an organizational culture that feeds into helping their people when we're not looking after it ourselves? But I think that the important thing to think about is that the really difficult conversations that have been had before COVID really kicked in, during, and now what will happen after it, and as we emerge into what the new normal will be. And what I mean by that is we really struggle to speak to the team who we really care about and have developed for so long with really strong vision for the future, and stand in front of them and say, before furlough was even a thing, we were saying, we're being told we need to make you redundant. Now, thankfully, within 3 days, we found out the furlough scheme was unveiled and we were able to put them onto that. But, the toll that takes on a leader, and we are not alone. You know yourself, there's a lot of people have had to have that exact same conversation. And nobody really, in many cases, have followed up with that person. Whether you're the owner or you're the manager, no one's followed up with you to say, how are you? And you've probably used up the whole reserve of resilience you had for that one specific thing, not to mention what you personally are going to go through over the next couple of months, from the worry of financial pressure, family pressure, God forbid that somebody you know or love is affected directly by it. And then it's a case of, right, stay calm and carry on, and we need to move on now. And yes, we all want to, but based on what the statistics are showing from last year alone, we were already starting to build up to what could have been and will be a mental health pandemic itself, or epidemic, should I say. And when you add that into the mix on top of the stress and anxiety and pressure and depression, unfortunately, and grief that comes with what has happened now, we're going to be in a situation where maybe we'll open and things will look good for a month or two, but what's going to happen when the dust settles and we're looking ahead and we're really left with the aftermath? And you have massive amounts of sickness leave. You have people possibly wanting to leave their job because they don't feel like they can do it anymore. And businesses are going to suffer from that perspective as well. So it's really important and crucial that we take the time to think from a service perspective, what support can we as service providers give to all markets and all industries and all people, So it's something that we really feel the fire behind us, and we're thinking, right, we need to get ahead of this and help people as best we can.
One of the things that JP was saying about just going back to before the furlough, when we had to walk into the company and bring everyone together beforehand and tell them that potentially there was no jobs, and we just had no control over that whatsoever. The thing like that was possibly, I would say, probably the worst sort of 3 days in a row there that we had in management. Like, it's the worst experience ever having to try and do that to a group of people. I mean, we were in the same position too. That was one of our main incomes as well. So we were in the same position, but it didn't make it any easier. And the thought that that's going to be happening now, coming up with so many people, there's so many leaders and managers and organizations are going to be left with this same problem that we had to go through on that occasion. And it's not nice. You do need support. People will need support to get through that.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Actually, we hear so much about everything that's happening, but I have to say this is the first conversation I'm probably having about the business leaders and where they are. And as you say, so we're in the digital space. We're very lucky that we're one of the industries that is busy with this. And the pressure, I have to say, so I'm 25. And
You're older than me.
I seen a photo from 2 years ago, and I'm not joking. I tell you, you don't see it day to day, but it's tough going. Every one of those months is another line somewhere, and there's I'm like just listening and going, oh my word, this is feeling like I'm opening up, but it's the pressure of exactly as you say, you're looking after the family, you're worried about health as well, not even business, health and everything else, extended family, friends. It's so weird. Everything's changed, and then you've got your team as well. And you're right; they're looking to you as they should be for the direction and the vision, and to know that everything is safe and secure. And we had to go through a phase of reinforcing everyone that and we're very lucky. No furlough or anything negative in our business. Again, that's one of the industries that's thankfully been okay in this whole things, but the questions we're being asked as business leaders are very strange. First time I've ever had anything like this been asked and asked, and so I can only imagine the pressure that someone's over here that is in the industry that's going through real challenges, and there's nothing out there like of the airline industry or anything like that. You work in an airport, or my words, because what's the answer? You just don't know. You don't know what is 2 months or 3 months or next year, and planning and security and sleeping at night. And there's one thing I've learned as I've got older is that your mindset and everything that you're aware of, you can be fine. But you go to bed and you don't sleep. But your front of mind and everything, you just a bit restless last night. Maybe it's a bit hot or something. You don't, but there's something there and you don't realize.
Consciously, it's something's working away there. Yeah,
it's dangerous. So again, it's really interesting to hear that you're recognizing this as one of the key things in organizational culture and everything else. But this is a key thing for everyone to be aware of today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for me probably the most important topic that needs to be discussed for businesses moving forward. Any organization with organizational employee well-being and employee engagement, they're the buzzwords that you would hear, and it's about understanding what that means. What does true employee engagement mean? Well, it means building relationships. It means building relationships that you can create a support network between your teams that goes beyond the day-to-day workings that you do within your role. And so what's the benefits of that? Well, the benefits are, as I said, support, making sure that people feel that they're not in it alone. In a time when we can speak to anyone face to face on a screen, it's never going to make up for the physical, tangible relationships that you can have, like shaking someone's hand, giving someone a hug, a kiss on the cheek. You can't make up for those things, but what you can do is you can try and maintain the culture through the engagement and the well-being that you'll have built up, i.e. building relationships with your teams and letting them know, we might be out of, well, not sight, but might be at a distance, but we're not out of mind, and you're not out of mind, and we're here for you. And I can tell you, I think anyone who says that they haven't been at one stage a little stressed, worried, or anxious about what's been going on, that maybe they need to do a bit of soul searching and recognize that there has been a point, or maybe you've been directly impacted by somebody that you love or care about, or know who has dealt with it. And it's about taking stock. It's becoming mindful of what's going on around you, understanding from a leadership perspective that you need to go after yourself too. You need to make sure that you're not just, because there are amazing leaders out there, many of them, who care and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to best support their people. They don't know what to do for the best, for lack of a better way of describing it. And there are many businesses out there who are directly linked to how you can get those answers. We're very much trying to put ourselves in the position where we're here to help. We're not saying we have all the answers, because do you know what? Nobody has all the answers, and especially on this topic, that let's face it, if there was a one-trick pony for sorting out mental health and well-being, then everyone would be happy. It'd be a really pricey product, I'd imagine, but everyone would be happy. And it's about working as a collaborative group of people, whether that's in a team, whether that's in an industry, or as a nation, and coming together and recognizing it is okay not to be okay. And that hashtag is very, very important. A lot of people have heard that, and during this period, I think it's gathered new meaning for me. And that would be that, what does that mean? Well, for me, what that means is, when you don't feel good, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't beat yourself up and think, I'm not good enough to overcome this challenge, or for God's sake, look at me. I'm one of those people, I'm a leader of an organization and I'm meant to be, I've got to have it all together. Well, take the pressure off yourself. That's what it means. It's okay not to be okay, because once you take the pressure off yourself, then you can say, well, how can I explore the ways that I can come out of this? And the support's out there, genuinely.
Okay. And Sean, do you find that people are asking or sharing the same conversations and asking the same questions, or are business leaders focused on staff at the moment? What are people talking about?
My fear would be that most people will be focused on what they need to do in the organisation themselves, and I'm not going to say forget about the team, but they're just not going to put the focus on that needs to be put on. I'm trying to be fair here, because there's different organisations will take different approaches to it. But I mean, with our own Odyssey team in particular, we talk to them. You know, the group chat has been outstanding, you know, from the beginning of this, and that's what we use in the main, because you don't be phoning people all the time, whatever. But we done a survey with them because we felt that we weren't getting all the right answers through a message. You know, you're not going to get that. So we thought we'll try a couple of different approaches, because people work with different ways of communication. So we said we'll do a survey, get a bit of feedback from that, and we got some great, honest answers through it. And we discussed all the different areas of the organisation, how they felt now, how they will feel, how they think they're going to feel when they come back into the organisation, and what procedures do they want put in place so that they feel safe. So there's one thing, Ciaran, we always can look at. There's a model, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the lower ends of that model were kind of always taken for granted, that sort of psychological and physical safety. And at the minute, you can't take that for granted. We need to go right back to basics again and ensure that people feel safe in the environment that they're working in, because there is so much fear. And I don't think people are even going to realise how much they are afraid until they have to go back into the working environment again and face a lot of things they haven't had to face. Because while it's not nice being stuck at home, you're kind of protected and you're safe at home. When you go out, you don't feel that way, and it's going to take a while to adjust to that. And organisations need to understand that if they don't protect their team now, that there may not be many options for team members at the minute, because jobs are scarce, and you need to keep what you have. But see, when the opportunity comes up, if they haven't been looked after at this point, when they have an opportunity for another job role, they'll take it. And that's the important factors. You might not see the negative impacts of a lack of action now, but you will definitely 100% see them in the near future once there's an opportunity for people. Look, I think most people have the right intentions. It's just that you need to understand that it's not a tick box exercise, and that everybody is different, and there isn't really one particular. You can have an overview of it and a particular process that you put in place, but each organisation needs to understand their own team. And I think a lot of people will be found out for what they've done before. If they hadn't in fact processed them before, it'll be much easier at this process this time afterwards. But if you didn't have a good culture beforehand, you're going to really struggle afterwards. And we talk about mental health, and this will strongly impact people's mental health, but there was a lot of problems before that anyway. And that's one of the reasons why we started Core Impact. Like, that's where it came from, because one of the areas in particular that we look at is the impact that organizations have on people's well-being throughout the rest of their life. Because you spend so much time on work. I mean, you're talking at least 40 hours a week for most people. Whatever happens in the workplace, you carry home. And if you haven't had a good day, you may take it out on your kids or your wife or your husband or whatever it is. So it has an impact on the bigger picture as well. And we talk to a lot of different mental health charities. We work closely with PIPs at a particular point in Odyssey Poll. And they'll all tell the same story, that the workplace, the work environment has a huge impact on general and in people's mental health. And we had a particular time where Core Impact, I suppose, where we realised what culture we really had there. And it was because of mental health that came around. We had a lot of different, because of the background, as JP says, but we have people sort of aged 18 to 24, a lot of difficult backgrounds throughout the time that we've been in Odyssey Poll, and just different. I'd say everybody's different, so different struggles that have come through that. But we had people come to us saying we're really struggling. But one person in particular that kind of, in our mind, sparked this, where he said he wanted to commit suicide. Now, that wasn't the first time we heard that, but it's the first time we really truly believed that if we didn't deal with that there and then, that he probably wouldn't show up the next day. And so we immediately brought him up to Pips, and they looked after him. And it's been a success story. He's doing amazing since that. But he came back and opened up to the team. And once he opened up, other team members started to open up too. And this is when we realized what culture actually was, because we were able to facilitate conversations. And like, they all grew out of this. The whole team grew out of this. There was 5 fellas in particular, which the Pips and Mental Health Charity, they had talked about and said, for 5 fellas to come out and open up is very unusual. So they supported us quite a bit in that. They sent someone down to chat to the team. We brought them up to them, and everything sort of progressed from there. But that's where we sat down and went, right, this is what culture really is what it means, and we can now actually see it. When people a lot of times say you can't see culture, you definitely can see it. You see it in every actions that happen.
See, sorry to go on about it a bit, but the takeaway from that, if people look and say, well, what is culture? And I know we've mentioned engagement and well-being, and it's relationships, that's what it is. But there's an old saying that says you should leave your problems at the door when you're going into work. And that is absolutely the worst attitude you can have in terms of building relationships, real, genuine, collaborative, caring relationships within the organization. And it's also not as simple as saying we have an open door policy, which means that if somebody has a problem, they can come in. And yes, okay, you need to put it in a term that people understand. And if that's the case, that's all right. But for us, it's not an open door policy. It's an open door way of life. It's the door being the metaphor for you as a person, as your personality, and whether you respond to people who need you, about going a little bit further as a leader and understanding. And it's not just formal leaders, it's not just management, it's the informal leaders. And that's one thing that we put a lot of focus on. And an informal leader is somebody who has any type of influence who's not in a management or supervisory role. And it could be somebody, as I said earlier, somebody who could become a problem child or a problem employee. And you usually find that they have the best intentions. It's just that they maybe don't agree with the way things are being done. And we have found, and not in all cases, but in most cases, we have found that if you put them under your wing and you explain to them why you're doing what you're doing, and it's for the right ethical, moral reasons, 9 times out of 10 they're going to get on board. And if you get them on board, any type of change initiative or change management project that you put in place will run smoothly, because they'll do it for you. We call them cultural ambassadors. So we have specific courses that we have developed that are based on understanding what skills are needed to become a cultural ambassador. Now, cultural ambassadors are both formal and informal, because you do need that direction from the formal leadership. But for us, it's all about understanding your emotional intelligence, how to focus in on it, how to build leadership skills that can drive people towards a common goal that they all agree with. Because a lot of times we find that people, if you stop, and this was like a running joke with us in Odyssey for many years, when we were trying to get people around the mindset of what is our vision and what are our core values. And we would have stopped and had a bit of banter, not serious at all, but stopped and said, right, what's the 5 key core values? And 9 times out of 10, they got 4 out of the 5, but they would have stopped with one of them, which was innovation, because they just didn't remember the word. It wasn't one they were used to. But I'm going off a tangent, but the point I'm making is it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be enjoyable. You're meant to build real relationships like you would with your friends. Because let's face it, as Sean said, you probably spent more time with these people than you do your loved ones. But think about it. When you go home, a lot of times, especially if you work later nights, you're going to bed, you're not seeing, you're getting back up, and they're either going out to work or you're going and doing something with your day before you have to go back to work that next night. So it's so important. It's for us, it's the way we live, and many people look at us and go, I think it's overlooked. I think that the importance of those relationships in organizations are very much overlooked. And a lot of times, even with the best intentions, as Sean said, people don't know how to build those relationships. They don't know, and I think sometimes it's risk adverse for fear of overstepping lines, being not properly professional in situations. Let's face it, the best working relationships in the world were built off common goals or common interests, and that's the empathy end of it. It's understanding that you can build a relationship with somebody and everything will come easy after that,
Obviously, there's things that have become very hot at the moment. And again, we talked about digital healthcare in general, it's front of mind. what we're talking about, our topic today, employees and welfare in business. I don't know. As you say, it was hot before. It's hot now. But do you think people will actually realise when we start going back to the new normal that this is one of the most important things in the business? Will people put this at the top of the queue, or it'll still be in the midpoint and we'll get to it in 6 months? It's on the list for companies.
An easy pushback for people, unfortunately, and a lot of times what we heard is it's the kind of the fluffy end of it. So unfortunately, that's how people look at it. That there are still old school management out there who just think you're paid to do a job, you get in and you get it done, and I shouldn't have to do any more than that, only pay you. And unfortunately, that's a view that's held around the place. But I think as things are changing, people are starting to recognise it, and they're starting to recognise what culture is in itself, and they're starting to understand people's needs more and more. So I think definitely there's improvements there in the general outlook, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done. And if only organisations could see the positive. I mean, we talk a lot about the people within the organisations because it's the biggest asset an organisation is going to have is the people, and they exponentially can grow as well. As the only thing probably you have in your organisation, which can just continue to improve forever. But if organisations really seen the benefit of what this brings, I mean, we talk about the key performance indicators we would talk about in particular are the turnover, as JP said earlier. And if you realise what you actually save by keeping your people in the organisation, the fact that you don't have to recruit, that you're not losing that experience. When you lose experience, a lot of times you lose customers with that. So you're saving time, you're saving money, and you're improving your productivity. If you could see what the benefits of that are, and there's actual tangible outcomes for looking after people, it's easy pushed to the back, and people will say, I don't have time for it. But if they just realise that by taking the time now, you save all that time and multiples in the future.
Yeah. It's sort of just a side note on that. You asked the question, do you think people will look at it more importantly? I think that what's going to happen is for the most agile companies who haven't already looked at this, they're probably going to be in a position where they're forced to look at it. I think that people, the issues that will arise with people starting to boil over, for lack of a better way of describing it, in terms of their personal issues and how that's impacting their productivity and work, I think that they're going to be forced to start outsourcing or at least building teams. Maybe even if it's just a resiliency team. For us, we're proposing that it's a cultural ambassador team. We're saying that you bring people on board who are specifically designed. It's not their only role, but they're in that way of thinking, and that they're injected and layered in the organization in such a way that you're hopefully covering all angles.
We've heard of organisations and larger organisations as well who have brought counsellors and on site, and unfortunately the solution a lot of time is go and see the counsellor. So it's deeper than that. I mean, the fact that they need to go and see the counsellor, you need to look at why. What is the reason that's actually causing it? So that's the effect, and the counsellor, I'm sure, will do great work and support them and help them. But it's getting to that point is what needs to be addressed, and a lot of times it's going to come from what's actually happened within the workplace itself, because people just aren't valued. And if people are valued, they're going to love their job. And again, just go back to the same thing again, it improves productivity and it gives the business long-term sustainable success. And just to recognise that, organisations would do really, really well. And I think anybody that implements positive culture, I think their organisation will be successful for a very long time.
Absolutely.
And obviously big companies have HR departments and chief officer of people or hearts, or chief culture officer, and all these amazing titles that sound great fun as well. Yeah. But obviously we have a lot of clients and people who watch this who would be small businesses, maybe a couple of staff, wouldn't have budgets. And again, I know it's number 72 to do, maybe as a some
priority
days,
list.
Yeah, well, listen, and some days, as you guys have pointed out, it is number one, and it actually will really impact the business. Is it a case of small businesses? Is it even starting and considering this and doing small things to start, or what would you advise?
Yeah, like we would say, see, in terms of actually building relationships with the team, we don't like the idea of appraisals. The yearly appraisal is absolutely useless. It's not going to do anything for anybody. We would say little and often. So one of the things that we talk about are development chats that we do. And that could be bringing a team member in for 5 minutes and having a chat, see if things are okay. Sometimes you'll find it needs more time in that because something has happened and you need to take a bit more time to talk to them, and that's absolutely fine. You know, have that time set aside. Try not to put limits on it. I know we're all time conscious, but try not to put too much time on it, and show the person that they're valued and you are actually listening. Communication isn't about talking; it's about listening as well, and that's more important. It's the saying of you've 2 ears in one mouth for a reason. Listen twice as much as you talk, maybe. So that's important. You need just small steps. You don't need to do massive things. You know, for smaller organizations, it's actually probably easier because these are people you're going to have contact with all the time. Just show them that you care, ask them how they are, say thank you. You know, but as long as you have a vision and they know what they're trying to achieve and where they fit into that vision, they'll buy into it, because everybody wants to have a place and everybody should have a place. And if you give them that position and they feel happy and they know exactly what they do and where they're going to go, they'll be bought in, and that just makes life so much easier. So it isn't an over. We're going to say it's not a difficult thing to do, but I should be saying it is, because we have to come in and do it. But you can do it in lots of different ways. And we have 2 programs that we look at. So our business is sort of split up, and we look at the business aspect and the community aspect. And we have programs that we run through, sort of core principles, core leadership, core success. But while we have a general program there, that will never be the same for any organization. That's the base that we look at. It's just to give someone a starting point to kind of look at and say, look, this is how we can do this. But that will change for everybody. And we make it very bespoke. We just don't like saying everything's bespoke, because it doesn't really mean an awful lot to people. But you give a base that they can work off, then we can kind of refine it a wee bit. And then that's how we make it fit that particular organization. But there are lots of different small bits and pieces that can be put in.
Yeah.
And make organizations to success, and small organizations can do that easily. It doesn't take that much time.
It comes down to lines of communication. So I think the studies show that the real problem areas, and Sean, you'll know a bit more than me, because I know you've done the research with me into it, but I think it's 12 people. After 12 people, that's where, any more than 12 people in the organization, that's where communication starts becoming like that. You're going to need a process after that point of what way communication is passed along. Now, we're talking about relationships, so where does that come? Well, communication's in every aspect of everything you do, whether it's with internal customers, that's your employees, or if that's external customers who are your paying customers, or even just your suppliers. And when we say communication, we mean all those things. Now, a really simple thing for anybody who is a small organization or a micro business like us, if you're wanting to create something that a culture within there, it's very, very simple. You need to know what your vision is. Now, what does that mean? What that means is, where is the landing pad? Like, where do you want, whether it's in the next 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, where do you want the organization to go? And what does that look like, right? Everybody in the organization needs to understand what that looks like, because how can they work towards a common goal if they don't know what the common goal is? And the goal is the vision. Well, the goals can provide you stepping stones to the vision, right? But then how do you, as an organization, reach that vision or those goals on the way to that vision? Well, that's why we talk about core values. So it's about creating core values that actually mean something. So it's going further than just slapping it up on a really nice, well-painted wall and saying, that's our core values, and you point at it every time you go past. Doesn't mean much if you don't actually live it through. So, for instance, one of our core values for core impact is integrity. So if we say we're going to do something, we do it. I'm not going to say that we're necessarily the most timely people in the world. We try our best. Maybe it's more between myself and Sean we're less timely, but when it comes to clients, we give 110%. We make sure that we go above and beyond the call of order, and we make sure that we're genuinely making a difference on them. And we ask real-time reviews. We make real-time reviews. So what that means for organizations is your vision, your core values, your team about what those core values are. And essentially another way of looking at core values is, well, what's the personality of the organization? And one of the fun ways that you can do that is give a little bit of ownership to the people who you work with. Maybe you own a shop and you've got a customer service advisor, somebody who works on your till, or somebody who's directly linked to customers or speaking to customers. Well, let them know what the personality, aka the core values are, and give them a little bit of room to make decisions based on the operations daily. Now, that could be something as simple as going ahead and putting something on sale because it's not doing overly well, or that could be something as important as writing a new piece of code that you think might add value to the customer at the end of the blockchain. So it doesn't matter where it is, and it can be big, tall organizations, or it can be 3, 4, 5 people operations, and having those core values to look at every time you do those development plans that Sean mentions provides not only direction, but it provides a little bit of accountability. It's like short sort of meetings with, how you doing? What do you want to try and achieve this week? This is what I think you should achieve, but you tell me what you would like to achieve to add value. And then we're going to come back in a week or two and we're going to speak about it again, holding them accountable to that, because accountability is so important for anyone who's watching. It is so important. If you say you're going to do something, for instance, I'll give you an example. I bought a guitar last week, 2 weeks ago, and I put a post out on LinkedIn, and I told people that I'm going to give an update in a few weeks' time, as in the next week or two, of how I'm doing. Like, for me, that was very strategic on my part, because I know that if I didn't do that, yes, I would probably strum away and think I'm great. But it's different now that I know I need to get the technique down. I need to learn at least one Oasis song, maybe not a full song. And I need to show
video.
I need to show people, you know. So that's what it comes down to. But I'm sorry, I get off on tangents. I can talk about this all day.
It's very interesting. So if you went into a company and you're helping them today, what would be the process then? Is it you sit down with the management team, you sit down with the staff, who's first? Is it everyone? How does that look, and what's the journey through, and what's the outputs then?
Well, the first thing is we need to have a measure. So you need to know where you are before you work out where you're going to go. So we will put in place a cultural analysis, which is essentially summed up as a survey, and get a bit of feedback through that. And that will come from the whole team. So the leaders of the organisation and the general team members throughout the whole organisation. And then what we would do is say, right, we've got these figures, but they're not always overly reliable, because they're just numbers at the end of the day. So we want to put them into practice. So we look at focus groups, calling in different parts at what size the organisation is, different areas of the organisation, and have a focus group and kind of say, what do these figures mean? You know, why do you think this has come up as this? And then we get a bit more of an insight about what's actually happening within the organisation. Like, everyone in the team should be informed of what's going on at all times, and this is where the communication becomes important. But we've seen this done in the past where others have focused just on the leaders of the organisation, and nobody else in the organisation knows what's going on, and it just does not work. It nearly creates more of a divide than it does actually help the process. So when you do work with the leaders in the first place, communicate with the rest of the team at the same time. So the leaders are important though, because they obviously have to filter this all through. They're the people who are going to be in the organisation every day. Again, depending on the organisation, you might have part-time team members, maybe all full-time. That's why it's so bespoke. It just depends on what's going on. But the leaders need to filter this through. They're the ones who create the overview of the culture. They're the ones who create the vision. And if they are leaders, I mean, when you talk about leaders, they can be managers who aren't leaders. And then there's the leaders. But they're the people who should be leading people towards that vision and creating the whole atmosphere, the whole feeling. As we say, culture is about the everyday interactions. Everything that goes on within the organisation, the decisions are made. The core values in particular. I mean, if we want to make a big decision, even though our core values, a lot of times people will see them as general, like integrity. You know, anybody could say their core values integrity, but it's what it actually means to you. What does integrity mean to you? And for us, that's what we think, say, and do. So, you know, sometimes you might be thinking something and you go to do something and you catch yourself and go, look, no, I can't do that because that's not right. That doesn't fit in. And we would kind of nearly use the core values as a bit of a checklist when we're making a decision. And that's why organizations should be doing that. You should be sticking true to what you believe, and your values should be the things that are just uncompromisable. You just do not compromise on them no matter what happens. And basically if you do, you lose everything. So the leaders will put that all through, push it all through. And then, as JP had said, we try and bring in cultural ambassadors who will be kind of the informal leaders of the organization who will have a strong influence. Like, the one thing about leaders are that people will think of a leader as being a positive thing, but I mean, there's leaders in gangs, and you know, they don't always do good things, but they're still leaders. So it's about understanding that the leaders are going in the right direction. So in particular, informal leaders can have a negative influence. If they're disgruntled in any shape or form, they can really bring the whole organization down. So it's about getting in and understanding that and trying to bring them on board as cultural ambassadors, and see if you get them on board, they still have the same leadership qualities. But if they're doing good things with them, they take the company in a positive direction. So women do a lot of different training. The cultural ambassador is one of the things, but we really do focus in on the strategy will be done with the leaders, but the communication, the mindset, the motivation will all be done with the rest of the team as well. So we can do different workshops on that, or just simply provide advice, because it depends on what the organisation is and what kind of they can invest into it, basically, in terms of time and money. So a lot of things that we've done is we're trying to work on blended learning, because we want to be less invasive in the organisations, because it's hard when you have somebody in working with your company. It takes hours away when people are trying to do work. So we're trying to do a bit of a mixture of working on site whenever we're able to work on site again, and a bit of blended learning, so people can do things online, which we then follow up on as well, because for us, quality is important. It's not just about doing a job and walking away. We're not actually big fans of standalone workshops, because we like to see what actually happens. So we like to be in the organisation doing the workshop, and then we're accountable to what happens after that as well, because if it's not effective, we haven't done our job right. So if we're still part of the organisation, the leaders in the organisation who are paying us can see that, and we can see it as well, and we'll be more critical than anyone else. So it is a long process. It doesn't happen overnight. We would say 12 months is a quick time to get a good turnaround. But the plus side to it is you start to see positive impacts from the start. You just don't see the full impact at the start. But once you put time and effort into people, they appreciate it straight away. And the rewards will begin from the day and hour that you get on board with sorting out your company culture.
Wow, what a detailed process. So I knew there would be some interaction, but I didn't think it would be so comprehensive. So that's incredible. And then at the end of the year, a company ideally has a roadmap, the staff and the managers all feel involved and maybe have been creating that as well. And
yeah, it builds up. So throughout the whole process, I mentioned real-time reviews. So we actually, through COVID-19 and lockdown, we've spent a lot of time sort of working on the business as well as in the business. And it's given us a chance to make sure we have a platform that people can use online, but it's also given us a chance to partner up with organizations who can help us provide other organizations with platforms to do real-time reviews, to make sure that you're looking after those development plans, but making sure there's dates associated with the goals that you're setting people. So we're working with the organization the whole way through, and the individuals, more importantly, in lots of cases, to see that they're reaching their goals all individually, that's feeding into the overall goals of the project and the organization's outcomes. And it's a concurrent thing, so it's throughout. Throughout that whole process. We usually find that there's a key player who will work alongside us, we're feeding information to, and they're drip feeding that down, or we're directly working with those people. But as well as that, you're embedding the change. So because essentially it is a change you're making in the organization. And Sean mentioned Maslow. We look at other theories, actually the likes of sort of others. It's a change. We look at those and we have our own spin on that and our own take on it, like everyone does. But we use many different tried and proven methods, but we try to be as innovative with our approaches as possible. We're taking real experience that we have from our own experience. We're taking experience from academic backgrounds and projects that have been run in the past. And we're making sure that one thing that we're really important to us, like Sean said, is the quality of the outcomes. So for us, it's important that by the end of that 12 or 18 months, because we always say 12 to 18 months at least for the changes to actually see them throughout the organization. I mean, I'm talking about the cleaners on the ground floor right up to the executives in the ivory towers, and that the collective responsibility is understood throughout the organization. You've had your teething problems. At that stage, you'd be looking to bring in new cultural ambassadors, because employee turnover, while we want to keep it reduced, it is healthy. It's important to bring new talent and manage new talent into the organization, but you also want your people who have been given an opportunity to show their leadership skills, be given opportunities to move up from an informal sometimes to a formal leadership position. And then you have that pipeline of leaders, and we have loads of different methods that we believe there's ways to build. That's a completely different project, but it can be bolted onto it. And for us, we done it very successfully for about a year period in Odyssey, and it's been extremely successful. We were able to step away, as I mentioned. We stepped away in September 2019 from full-time work after running this business and doing our full-time jobs, and genuinely on a coin's turn, we were able to have that organization running as smoothly as if we were there already. And that team are still in place. Actually, one of them, who was one of the main key players of running the site, has now been given a further opportunity because he's done so well in movie house cinemas. But we're not worried about that because he's moving to another site, yet we still have that pipeline that one project has developed now into a few years moving forward for the goals of the organisation. It's exciting. See whenever you see it come into fruition and you see people, because it does come to accountability, because you can put nice bells and whistles on anything and make it sound nice, but it's rolling up the sleeves, making sure that you're a facilitator, because that's what we're there to do. We're there to facilitate you as an organisation to achieve these things, and we're not doing a good job if we're not making you dependent on your own team rather than becoming dependent on us. Yes, we'll be there. We can be there the whole way through the period, and in many cases we'll continue to have relationships with those organisations in a non-formal capacity, and we just want, because when it really comes down to it, and my fiance Laura laughed at me one night when I said this. She said, well, what's your purpose? You know, the big why of why you're doing what you're doing. And I said, well, it's to positively impact as many people in the world as possible. And for us, it's that intrinsic motivation. It's altruism. I'm throwing buzzwords in here, but for lack of describing it a better way, Chad, it's what it is.
We had brought so many people through sort of steps to work, placements and things like that, and a lot of people who I suppose wouldn't have been valued elsewhere, they might not have been given opportunities for various reasons, and the benefits we got from that was absolutely unbelievable. You know, great people, great personalities for the job, and we benefited so much from them, and most of them are still there actually, and the ones who aren't there have moved on to better things, and we all still have contact. And you know, education is important obviously, but it all depends on what role you're going into. In the sort of leisure entertainment industry, it's not so important. You know, it's more about your personality and what you can offer, and customer service is the essential point. If you're providing excellent customer service, you know, if you have a happy team, that's what they're going to do. And I mean, one of the awards that we won at one point was they gave it a bit of a read through beforehand, and they said when the mystery shopper came in, they felt that the team were having as much fun as the customers were. You know, and that really changed through. Now it's obviously a fine line between how much fun they're having, but yeah, I mean, it really changed through. So the people coming in are so important, and when we look at that, we kind of go, you know, people need to understand culture as well. It's okay, the organisation having a good culture, but people need to understand what working environment they're going into. And you may have some of the skills that you might be able to write a CV or do an interview or things like that, but one of the things you need to understand is, how does the business operate? What do I need to do to fit into cultures? What do I need to look for? What do I need to recognise? So we think within communities, and particularly we're talking about young people in particular, they need to understand how they fit into the working environment, because it's not just about finding a job, it's about finding a long-term job that they can stay in. There's a lot of times I think you find that, and again, I'm not going to discredit everyone, because this isn't everyone, but there are some sort of steps to work processes that it's a case of get as many numbers through this and get them into a job. Now, if they might last a month in the job, but you've ticked the box to say you got them in a job, and that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the people. It's not good for their confidence, and it's certainly not good for the communities that they are living in. So we formed a relationship. When we looked at this, we kind of went, right, this is like a cycle. So we look at developing people, businesses, and communities, and they all work within each other. So the community gives to the business, and the business gives to the community. And we're talking about different things like, you know, if people are employed, if they're in employment, and the community benefits, reducing crime rates, you know, has a positive impact on the culture of the community. And why can't the community have a vision? Why can't the community have values? So this is something we really want to push through, because we think everyone benefits from that. If we're sending good people into these job roles, we're creating more opportunity. We talked to someone the other day, and they were saying that in terms of their recruitment, so there was a certain level where they got good people, but they got to a certain level, but they weren't getting people applying for it. And a lot of times it's not because of quality, because there's people with ability, definitely 100% people with ability, maybe not just confidence or an opportunity. And we need to get this all right in order for everyone to benefit. And that's kind of what we're operating, and that's what we sort of see as a unique part of what we're doing as well, because it's not about finding a job, it's about finding a long-term job that people are happy in. And that's where the quality of our core value, that's another one of our core values, and that's where that comes in, is that quality side.
Incredible. No, sounds amazing. And there's so many aspects to what you do, and so many benefits to different types of organization, which is definitely unique. I think you guys are going to get busy or be busier as things go back, which is a good thing, bad thing. because wow, there's going to be a lot of pieces to be picked up. I think in companies, and it's going to be a scary, wild, crazy roller coaster over the next couple of months and years.
It is.
Yes, definitely. But people have good intentions, and I think generally speaking, you will find that, like, you've already seen it throughout the lockdown period. You've seen some amazing examples of people who are genuine heroes about going out into the community. There's a lot of organisation that goes into speaking to different suppliers who are willing to firstly be nice enough to give away food and supplies to those who can't get outdoors, because obviously you've got a lot of people who are in that category that they're vulnerable. And for some people for one person or a couple of or group of people to say, you know what, we're going to do something more than just sit at home and try and stay away from everybody. I'm actually going to go out, put myself at risk, put my family at risk, so that I can make sure that the people that are most vulnerable in my community are going to be looked after. And so it's those people who should be definitely celebrated. I mean, that clap every Thursday that we were doing was amazing. And it was nice that it wasn't just obviously care workers, and of course the care workers should be identified as and healthcare workers specifically, and doctors, nurses, etc. They're the ones who have genuinely been on the front line, but also the retail workers, also the postal workers, also the people who have to leave their house, had to leave their house every day under the circumstances that they could be putting themselves and family at risk. So I think that there's some nice narratives that could come out of this, especially for people who are returning to work but did take one of those rules on and volunteered or helped out. And I think that it might be one of the nice incentives you could put together as a leader or a manager within an organisation, because you'll know probably if as Sean mentioned, you'll be caught out very quickly if you didn't have a good relationship with the teams you had. If you do have the relationships you probably should have, then you might have noticed, whether it's on a social media platform, whether it's through word of mouth or a call or a text, you might have noticed that there's people in your team who are genuinely heroes and they've done really well, and make sure that that's one of the footmarks that you start on and say, I appreciate what you've all probably been through. I can't say I know how you feel, but I can say that I'm open to trying to learn how you're feeling. And from this step forward, we are here as an open book. Maybe we didn't do it beforehand, but we care about you. Not to go off on a huge tangent, but we work with an organisation. There was a lady who worked with them for 23 years. She was the longest standing worker that they had. And she told us in the focus group that Sean mentioned that she had never been once told or given a thank you for the work that she'd done. And as much as she was loyal, she was disgruntled. And it was I'm not saying we fixed the problem, but we identified the problem just by being in the room less than half an hour. With her at that stage, we ultimately were in that room for an hour and a half, 2 hours. But within half an hour, we worked out, and we're quite good at working out who the informal leader is. That's one of the traits that we've picked up along the way. We're good at picking out informal leaders, or people who could potentially be a formal leader or informal leader. But for us, that lady was the person who stood out in that room. So we spent a bit of time with her, had a chat, really asked fact-finding questions, and give her the opportunity to be heard, because that's what people want to be. They just want to be heard. And it either creates enough. See when you sit back and you listen to people in organizations, and you say, well, is there any problems? And at first everyone says no. And then when you really start asking questions and saying, well, how does the day-to-day operations go? Team against team, or is it person against person? We're not assuming that there's any problems, but we're just asking these types of questions. And before long, it's like a snowball effect. It starts the small things that they didn't realize, as you mentioned at the start, Ciaran. You find that whether you know it or not, something could be working on you. And for organizations, your people are no different. You can genuinely find that you coming into the workplace as a leader with your head down and a frown on your face, or a raised voice whenever somebody asks you a question, or just lack of empathy, will have an impact on even the hardest shelled person in the world, and whether it impacts them directly in an emotional perspective, or it impacts them from the perspective of, he doesn't care about me, then it will have an adverse impact on you and the relationships and the organization ultimately, like Ciaran mentioned before.
Yeah, I think just one of the things about this is, as well, is I think it's important as well to recognise that there are really good organisations who practice this day and daily, and they do have a great culture. And there's one, just as JP was talking, there's one that just came to mind. I don't think they'll make me saying because it's a nice thing. We chatted with a guy called Brian Reid, and his company's Deli Lights, and we were so impressed with the stuff that he'd done, but yet he wanted more. He just wanted to do more. He seen one particular problem, which, I mean, honestly wasn't a major problem, but he's seen it, he identified that quickly, and he wanted another solution for it. And there are a lot of organisations like that too, because culture is the type of thing that, once you get it right, it doesn't just stay there unless you keep working at it. So if you let it drop at all, it will. So it's about just being on the ball and having your finger on the pulse and knowing what's going on throughout your whole team. And that's where the little and often development plans come into play, because you catch things before they really happen. And that's important.
It's that Kaizen approach, isn't it? It's the Japanese sort of term for continuous improvement. And it's the organizations who are the quote unquote best at what they do in terms of culture. And it's those ones who you'll find, like Brian Reid as well, and his company Deli Lights, you find that even though they're doing things extremely well in comparison to competitors or just business in general, they want to continue to do better. They want to do the best for their team, and they want to care about their people in many different ways. And as Ciaran mentioned there, there's many organizations who do fantastic things, and they're doing it maybe on a small scale, maybe on a large scale. Maybe people realize it's being done, and they see the benefits of it, or maybe they don't realize it's being done and they still feel the benefits of it. So perspective's a wonderful thing. But again, not to go off on tangent, but just to make the point that, many organizations who unfortunately maybe aren't doing it right in terms of looking after their people usually have those right intentions. Usually find that the CEO or the manager, the senior manager, they don't know what to do. They want to care, and if you speak to them one-on-one, you'll probably find that they're a really empathetic person and that they care about you, but they're bogged under because there is no process in place that allows them to have allocated time to spend with you, or a team member who is there to spend with you. So people naturally jump to conclusions and say, well, don't care about me because they don't show it, because the proof's in the pudding. And that's a very, very fair point. And I think that regardless of having to pay for it or not, and of course that's maybe going against, as a company, a limited company, it's going against what we should be trying to do. But there's a lot of material out there that's free. There is never a time that someone contacted us with asking for a piece of advice that we're going to say no, or we're going to say here's our bill. It doesn't happen unless we're engaging in a contract. We want to just add value, regardless if in a contract or out of contract. We're here to add value, and we're not going to pretend that we know all the answers either, because we'll be very open about the fact that we're not going to give you advice if we think it's just to give you advice. If we think that somebody else might have more knowledge, we'll be very open about the fact. We'll just go, look, not actually too sure about that. Going to double check here, and we're going to find out if we're going to double check, well, what we're saying to you is 100% what somebody else agrees with. So, but it's focusing on businesses want to do better, and there's information out there, and by all means, if you think that we're a company that could help you with that, or as people we can help you, let us know. We're always here. We're always on LinkedIn.
You give me plenty to think about here, and I'm sure anyone watching this is going, wow, okay, and they're going to have to sit back and maybe think about the way forward, because fixing something like this or improving it slightly could be a real competitive advantage for a business in the current climate, looking for talent, growth, productivity, and every pound or penny is a prisoner at the moment, no doubt. So if anyone does want to reach out, have a chat with you gents, find out more about what you can do, or even just shoot the breeze and have a cup of tea, what's the best place for them to go, find you, web addresses or LinkedIn? Where should we send them?
Well, our website is developingyourpeople.com, so it's developingyourpeople.com. Our email address is engage@developingyourpeople.com, but you'll find us on LinkedIn, probably the easiest. So it's just Ciaran Grant or John Paul Taggart. We're trying to be on there as much as possible, so it's normally the easiest way. Our contact numbers are on there as well, so pick up the phone anytime as well.
Also, just to add to that, in terms of information, we do a series called Culture Talks. And we've only started it. We're only 9 episodes in. The next ones are in tonight, the most recent one. So you can find Core Impact Limited on YouTube, and you can see our logo. You can't really miss it. It's just like a combined group of people linked together, and it's blue. And if you take a look at those videos, we bring on some amazing industry experts in terms of running their own business, whether it's a well-being or suicide prevention expert, or if it's just somebody who's really good networker. We are constantly bringing new people on to add value to the conversation of culture, and from all different aspects, what it is, what it means, how you can do it. And it's not a how-to guide, but it's definitely in-depth conversations about culture. So we're really passionate about that. So if you want to give that a wee subscribe, if you can. If not, reach out to us, like Sean says, and we'll have a one-on-one coffee with you, whether it's over this platform and any other platform, or hopefully in the future, the not too distant future, a coffee face-to-face in our offices or in a coffee shop.
Yeah. Amazing. No, thank you again for that, and I'll definitely check out your YouTube channel. So what we'll do is, for anyone watching this video, check below the video or in the text around this, you'll see links to the gents' YouTube, their website, and to their LinkedIn profile. So do please click on those, check them out, check out the videos on YouTube, the website for resources, and say hello on LinkedIn for sure. And again, gents, thank you very much for that. That was brilliant, really insightful.
Thank you so much, Ciaran. Delighted to be here. Delighted.
No, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. So if you enjoyed this chat, please do subscribe, of course. Why not share it on social media? Who knows who could benefit from listening to some of this conversation in the business world today. And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you again.